started. Hello? 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 I see you back there. My book club deep in here tonight. I love that. How's everybody doing? I see a couple of you. You can go ahead and eat. We're gonna have a good time tonight. We're so happy. Oh, calm down. I'm so happy for everybody. We have so many people I know and so many people I don't know. Welcome to the 5th annual Gala. For those of you who know me, you know that I am Joseph House, and Joseph House is me. Like, everything about the Joseph House is me, and I rep the Joseph House like a red flag Russian. So, you know, we have the Gala. This is our 5th one. We have the Gala to express a lot of ideas and things that's going on, from criminal justice to some of the success our brothers have had being at the Joseph House. And yesterday I celebrated 2 years of being out of prison. I noticed some of the things that when I came to the Joseph House, I noticed a lot of things that was different from typical organizations like, you know, halfway house and stuff. And the Joseph House is not a halfway house. That's a home we have there. But a lot of the brothers was actually doing things, and it was being documented. Like, people was, Father Dustin and Rachel, our superstar, our social worker, we have people that does those type of things for us, and our community is just growing. We have so many people that help us. And I was noticing, one thing you don't see with other types of organizations like ours is so many people that then did well on accomplishments. So that's what I'm big on, you know. Like, since I did 22 years. I was locked up from 18 to 20, up to I was 40 years old. I did 22 years. I needed something like the Joseph House to help me. So right now I have my business going. I have a pressure washer business. But my brothers, all of them, we've been doing so well. And I just like, we got brothers that got degrees from Florida State, culinary arts, like, these guys are taking off, and it's all because of the Joseph House. And how many years ago this man right here had that dream to open that place, and I'm here to tell you it changed my life. So right now you have cards in front of you, and those are the donor cards. You don't touch them right now. We're gonna fill them out later with you. All right. Don't be in the trust. I see a couple people, they ready. But just wait till later on in the evening, and we're gonna fill them out together, me and Father Dustin. Also, I wanna let the people know who haven't been here, we appreciate you coming here. Even if this is your first time, I see a lot of people that wasn't here last year or the year before. We appreciate you coming here, and we hope you enjoy yourself. Right now, I want to introduce a friend of mine, a good person, and he has his fingerprint on the Joseph House, Bishop Wall. Calm down. All right, everything cool?
Okay, he's calming me down. Okay, good. He's my coach. Hello, everybody. It's me, Bishop Bill. I'm not anybody in this whole thing. They say, oh, he said yes. Yeah, that was the easiest yes I said to starting Joseph House. I just told people, you know, people come up to me all the time as a bishop and they say, Bishop, what we need in this community or this diocese is whatever, you know? And then they walk away and I'm like, all right, it's not gonna be done. If no one's gonna get involved, I'm not gonna do it. But if somebody says, we need this, and I've got friends, or I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna start this, I'm like, absolutely. And that's what happened with Joseph House. It was, you know, this is what we need in our community, this is what we're going to do. We already have a lot of people who are interested in doing this. Can we do this? And I'm like, let me think about it, yes. It is an awesome thing for our diocese. It is, I'm so proud of it. And all I have to do is show up and, you know, I get to like hug people and shake hands and all that, and there's babies. There's no babies, I don't think. Anyway, yeah, and so you know, when we're younger, or if you're not from this community, you look at something, an organization, a community like Joseph House, and you think, wow, that's amazing. I mean, there must be just a lot of professionals running this thing and everything, corporations or whatever. And then you learn, you know, as you grow up or as you're a part of a community, you learn it's us. It's this community. We coming together do great things. Many of you are professionals and you're involved in many things, but it's just people coming together like Dorothy Day. If you've heard of her, Dorothy Day was one who started the Catholic worker movement back in the 20s and 30s, 1920s and 30s. She saw, you know, there's so much poverty and this new thing that was homelessness. It was new back then, of course, and bread lines and all of that. And she said we were just sitting around having coffee, and someone said, why don't we feed those men in line there who can't get a job? And so we did, and they started that. And then she said, and we were just sitting there having coffee, and someone said, they got no place to stay tonight. So they opened up a little shelter, a house for them. Then she said, we were just having coffee when someone said, what about a job for them? You know, so I love that. It's kind of organic for her, and that's really Joseph House as well, and a lot of what we do. We're just sitting around having dinner, and someone said, well, I got a job, I've got an employment, I can employ a couple guys or whatever. I can do training, teaching, something like that. So I love that about our community. I love that about Joseph House as well. So I just want to welcome you here tonight. It is good that we are here. It's important to come together. We learned that, of course, after the pandemic, you know, how much we craved community and missed it. And then we remember those first few meetings back. We're like, look at us, we're back together. There's not even 6 feet distance between us. But even besides that, it's just good to be together, to support one another, to love one another, and to share this vision together. We are made for community. We're made for each other, and so it's good to be together today. Now, then I think I just do a prayer, right? I was going to pray for all the food we were going to eat, but so who's our new bookkeeper? Where are you? We were talking about this. I'm praying in arrears. Right? Arrears is like something that's already happened. I'm going to pray for the food that is going down in your digestive system, that God will bless it. And bless it as it comes out. No, I'm sorry, I just stopped talking. Just stick with it in your digestive system. All right. Shall we pray? Oh, Heavenly God, we thank you, we bless you, we praise you for all that you have given to us. We thank you for the gift of life itself. You have fashioned us and created us in your own image and likeness, and set us over the whole world in all its wonder. And you have charged us with the joy of the gospel to be your presence, your mercy, your love, your community in the world. Continue to pour out your blessings upon us, our food, and our gathering tonight, so that more and more people can be inspired to join us. And more Joseph Houses and communities like that will spring up around the community and certainly the country and the world. Bless us and all of our efforts, which we pray are really doing your will. We ask all of this through Christ our Lord. Amen. Spirit, do we clap for God or something? Okay. I'd like to introduce a friend of mine. He was born at a very young age. Grew up in, I don't know. You gotta love that
guy. Of course, I met Father Dustin first when I was incarcerated, and he always talked about the person that pretty much gave him the keys to start this thing. And when I met him, I was like, I already know one priest that's not like a regular priest you would know. Now I know a bishop that's, you know, they got a little sauce to them. So right now, I want to introduce another friend of mine and a member of our Joseph House family, Sonia Home.
I know, I'm short, I'm sorry. And I have this voice. So glad for you to be here. Thank you. Welcome to our Joseph on Gala. This is a big, big deal for us, 5 years. My name is Sonia Cronin. I am the co-founder of Joseph House, and what that really means is when Father Dustin was first thinking about what it would be like to have this home, I was one of the people on the other side of the phone, and I got to bounce ideas off. That's what that really means. But as Bishop is talking about Dorothy Day and what would it be like, that was the question that started Joseph House. It was when Father Dustin went into prisons and he met people that were incarcerated and realized they were getting out and they didn't have anywhere to go. And the question was, what would it be like if we could have a home? Not a halfway house, not anything institutional, but something that looked like home, where you could go in the cabinet, get your Fruity Pebbles out at will, and nobody stopped you, right? What would that look like? And now we know. We know exactly what that looks like because it's at 302 Bradford Road. And we're so excited that you can share some of that with us. So today, what we're going to do is we have some wonderful speakers that are here from various different places. I'll introduce them in a minute. But what I want you to think about, and this is kind of the theme of tonight, is that when we think of these big problems in our world, right now the most recent is Gaza. 5 years ago it was Syria. But whatever it is, these problems feel too big for us to handle. We sit there and we watch them on the news, and we don't know how to help. We desperately want to, but we don't know how. When we think about mass incarceration, when we think about people coming out of prison, when we see those numbers, it's as daunting as those wars. We don't know what to do about it. And what we want to show you tonight is that Joseph House is what you do about it. Joseph House puts a pin on the map and changes the global landscape. It changes everything about mass incarceration because it's in small a solution of what to do with the large. And what we would like to see, we would like to see Joseph Houses all across the globe. We think that we're the first, and we think that we have a vision and a story that can change the world. And so what we have tonight is we have Terry Coonan, who is the director of the Center for Human Rights at Florida State University. He is an attorney who works with human rights abuses all across the globe. You've read some of his bio if you've been getting our newsletter. And we have Patricia Oconta, who is a legal defense fund attorney with the NAACP. She's worked personally with one of our clients, and she's here tonight. She works with civil rights in particular, and we're going to see how those issues kind of overlap. But what we're interested in is how their work interacts with the Joseph House issues and where they see us in their respective fields and in their world. So without any further delay, Terry and Patricia, if you would come up and join me. And then after that, we have two of our residents, Pri and Andre, that will join us in these conversations, and we'll say more about them in a minute. Give us a moment to put our mics on. All right, can you hear? Little testers.
Testing.
Testing?
Okay.
Excellent.
We are all on. So Terry, Patricia, it's so good to have both of you here with us. We're so thrilled for that. I'm just going to get right to it. I'm going to start with Patricia, and then I'm going to go over to Terry and ask something similar. But Patricia, talk to us a little bit about what you do. As an LDF attorney, what are the civil rights issues that you see facing those incarcerated, those coming through into reentry? How does your work interfere with these issues, and how does the Joseph House play into all of that?
Excellent. That is a broad question. Where do I start?
Yes, very broad.
The issues affecting our brothers and sisters that are incarcerated are expansive. When we think about entry into the criminal legal system here in America, even from the start, we're facing issues like wealth gap. Oftentimes, people that are involved in the criminal legal system Their charges or how they approach the legal system aren't based on culpability. They're not based on guilt all the time. They're based on what they can afford to pay, right? When we think about options for attorneys and options for legal counsel, when we think about options in posting parole, often wealth has to do with that. And we see that a lot in our work at the Legal Defense Fund. Through the criminal legal system, we also see various racial disparities, right? Disproportionate amounts of Black and brown people across this country are disproportionately targeted or impacted by the criminal legal system in America. Upon entry into the system of incarceration, we see folks dealing with deplorable conditions while incarcerated, being forgotten. At the height of COVID, we represented a class of individuals that were incarcerated in Arkansas and did not have access to basic health needs. Some of them passed away because of that, those sorts of issues. We are also seeing insurmountable barriers to things like parole, which Joseph House really serves as a model to help, break through some of those barriers. But what we've seen in our work at the Legal Defense Fund is folks that are redeemed, folks that have been rehabilitated, folks that deserve a second chance, but are presented before a parole board and are denied again and again because of a lack of resources, because of a lack of opportunity, and oftentimes, unfortunately, simply because of a lack of care. When we think about re-entry issues, we think about lack of access to job opportunities. Sometimes folks that are re-entering society can't access public housing, public benefits, educational resources, things that are integral to really restarting your life, right? And becoming a responsible citizen that we say we want our brothers and sisters that are returning from incarceration to be, they don't have access to. And so at the Legal Defense Fund, in our work, in our civil rights work, in our racial justice practice, we really hone in on these issues. We partner with organizations like Joseph House and other organizations, and we partner with our communities of folks that have been impacted by incarceration to challenge these sorts of barriers. Today we're looking at maybe 10 million people every year that are directly impacted by systems of incarceration in our country. That means, with those numbers, we all in this room have probably less than a degree of separation from folks impacted, right? If not ourselves, it's our brothers, our sisters, our uncles, our friends, nieces, nephews, right? With that sort of impact, with that sort of connection with folks that are incarcerated, these issues are really paramount, not only to us as an organization, but to us personally. These are all things that we should be responsible for. These are all things that we should be bringing attention to, and things that we should be working towards progress with. And as I mentioned earlier, Joseph House is really a partner in that progress. As Sonia mentioned, this is, she characterized it as a small feature of a larger movement towards helping individuals and really serving the needs of our communities. But what Joseph House is doing is not small. It is huge, right? When we appear before parole boards and we can say that there is a home, not a halfway house, as Free mentioned, a home where folks can come to and have wraparound services and support and guidance and mentorship, and really have a partner and hand in bettering themselves. Those sorts of things speak mountains to parole boards, and oftentimes are the final stroke after years, decades even, of denials that allow our brothers and sisters to come home. So that's just a brief introduction of some of the things that we do involving mass incarceration and the criminal legal system, and how Joseph House is really paramount to our mission and really creating an incredible impact on the world.
Patricia, thank you. I want to clarify and point out and highlight one thing, just to make sure that we're hearing you correctly. You were saying that people that have gotten to the point where they have served their adequate time and deserve freedom, are denied their freedom because they don't have somewhere to go.
Oftentimes we see that.
Okay. Thank you for that. Terry, so good to have you here. Terry is so much fun. Look at that smile. So, Terry, you do human rights work. that, those are big words for most of us that don't do this kind of work. Tell us what that means on the ground. What do you do? What does human rights work look like? How is incarceration a human rights issue?
Sure. Well, I'm an international human rights lawyer. I actually began some 30 years ago, was in Chile at the time. It was during the Pinochet dictatorship, and there the huge issue was torture. So that much of the work that I did for several years in Chile was really kind of an introduction for me to the human rights field. A lot of it working with survivors of torture, many of them very young, college-age students. It was my introduction to the human rights world. Since then, I've come back. I've pursued human rights law as a career. I now direct the Human Rights Center here at Florida State University. One of the things we're fond of saying, it's an interdisciplinary human rights center. What that means, human rights are far too important to be left to the lawyers of the world. This is why we work with our social work school, our film school. We have a new human rights major in our religion school, our religion department here. We work with folks in criminology. We're victim-based, so we actually work with survivors of torture. We work with asylum seekers, currently working with about 100 families who were brought in from Afghanistan about a year ago when the Taliban retook over control of that country. All of those families have young girls who were immediately pulled out of school, pulled out of work, told, go back to your home, wear the hijab. You have no future in the public life of Afghanistan. Many of them had assisted our U.S. military, and their lives were at risk. So they were brought in really on a moment's notice. About 150 of those families are here in Tallahassee. We're doing all of their immigration law work for them. So again, that's the kind of privilege that we get to do. We do a lot of work, sadly, with human trafficking victims, too. It's a human rights issue right here at home, and we're victim-based, so that our Human Rights Center essentially works with victims, preferably actually the term survivors of violence, of different crimes, or at times of political persecution as well. It's a great mandate. We get to work, we get to do pro bono work, we get to actually see human rights right where it is, where the rubber meets the road. It's also the great thing that's brought us into the world of Joseph House. Joseph House does international human rights work right here in Tallahassee. Thank you, Father Dustin, for what you have done. And for the way that you bring human rights into our community at the grassroots level. That is one of the really exciting things. We get to see people rebuild their lives in the human rights world. That's exactly what Joseph House, and again, so many of the people in this room, by contributing to that, great members, Pri, Arthur, Andre, just great to have you guys with us here. You bring a great deal to us. Along with being members of our community. So we're all about basically helping people restore their lives, and that includes at the community level, a great reason for us to be working with Joseph House.
That's great. So one of the things that at Joseph House we really pride ourselves on in terms of our difference is that we do see ourselves as a home. It's not institutional. It is, we're looking at, like I said, with the Fruity Pebbles, it's not just a passing thing. It's something that we appreciate. We like meals around the table, drive us to school. Like some of the most intimate moments, I think, is when Father Dustin is driving somebody to work, you know, and it's like those conversations that happen early in the morning, late at night. And so what we imagine is home. How do you see that as, can you comment on that idea from your experience in terms of people that have suffered from civil rights, human rights, that notion of restoring not just, you know, shelter and food, but that notion of home. How do you see that?
Absolutely. I'm going to take a step back and ask all of you guys to think about what you envision home to be. What the foundation is for you. And home can look like a lot of different things. It can be your familiar environment. It can be a work environment, maybe an activity or hobby where you commune with others, an activity that you enjoy. You know, home is really a foundation for you to latch onto and build off of. And that is integral for our brothers and sisters that are returning from a period of incarceration. Having a community to return to lean on, to learn from, to have guidance, to share with, to commune with, to discuss hardship and challenges. Those sorts of things are integral not only to our community members that may be returning from a period of incarceration, but is important to all of us. It's really foundational to how we achieve our goals, how we pursue our aspirations, and how we survive on a day-to-day, having a home, a community to return to. And so it's really incredible what Joseph House has provided, right? This is a community, a return, a latch point for people to have as a base point as they re-enter society, to really move forward, to progress, to develop. And I can't put into words the value of that home environment for our clients, for a broader community, and really for all of us.
What struck you the first time you came to Joseph House? Like, there's certain things, there's certain aspects about it that caught your attention. I remember meeting you the first time you were there. Do you remember?
A couple of things. I would say number one, the beautiful environment that was created in Joseph House. Meeting Andre, seeing Arthur again, our client, and seeing how they all communed with one another, relied on each other, were able to share, challenges and hardships that they were facing, but also to share joy. We were just reminiscing on a point when we sat in the garden behind Joseph House for several hours and listened to Andre just describe his journey and his aspiration and his goals. And those sorts of opportunities, I really want to capture them as opportunities, because some people are not privileged enough to commune in that capacity. Really give you a moment to reflect and think and encourage your colleagues and those around you, but also to have encouragement and inspiration for yourself internally. And so the beautiful community at Joseph House really stood out to me in a way that I have never seen in this sort of re-entry space. And also the independence of it all as well. Our brothers in Joseph House, the men in Joseph House, have their own rooms, their own ability to grow in ways that they may not have thought they could before. I know our client Arthur always enjoyed being a chef, or always enjoyed cooking, right? And now has gotten certifications in being a chef, and really taking it on himself independently to grow and develop in a way that at some point may have seemed unimaginable. And so providing the foundation for growth and development, but also providing a community of reliance is something that is unique to Joseph House and very, very special about this community.
Thank you. Terry, when I listen to you talk about the girls in Afghanistan or any of the refugees that are coming here, I mean, it works with exactly what we're talking about. They've lost their homes. And they come here and they need, everything from apartment or home, house, to community and all of those. How does that play more into your work?
Well, home is at the heart of what human rights are all about. This year, actually, just on December 10th, next week, will be the 75th anniversary of the human rights movement. It's when Eleanor Roosevelt completed what the United Nations called the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It's a list of all the human rights that everyone in the world should have. And it was interesting. Well, first of all, it took her about 2 years. They always say if you have a hard job, give it to a man. If you have an impossible job, give it to a woman. That's what the UN did to Eleanor Roosevelt. They said, hey, go all over the world and give us a list of all the human rights everyone should have in every country and every culture. It took her about 2 years. I do the same exercise with my students. I tell them, Eleanor Roosevelt had 2 years to come up with a list of all the human rights that people should have. I'm going to give you guys about 20 minutes. Come up with a list of all the human rights that you think everyone should have. But what was interesting, at the end of that, she was asked, where do human rights begin? And she said, famously, in small places close to home. And I love that, this idea that human rights start at home. And that's what Joseph House does. Human rights are basically made concrete right there at home. Human rights documents talk about one of the fundamental rights being safety and security. And that's exactly what Joseph House does. It offers safety and security and a place for people to rebuild their lives. So it is at heart a human rights mission. It's what I think all of us in the human rights field attempt to do. You know, we talk about international human rights, universal human rights. It's what Joseph House does right here in Tallahassee, right here in our community.
Thank you. So I remember it's been a year, maybe 2 years, that you and I first had lunch and talked about Joseph House. It's been a while. In that conversation, we were beginning to tease out exactly how mass incarceration or the prison system is a human rights issue that comes into your field. Could you talk just a little bit about that?
Sure. You know, I think the focus of the human rights movement, and even of our center 20 years ago when we were founded, was to be international. So work with international victims, work with refugees, work with asylum seekers, torture survivors. What we've all, I think, learned in recent years is that we have human rights issues right here in the United States, and that we have to absolutely address those. I remember at the time of George Floyd's death, I thought I need to redesign my course. I can't just focus on human rights violations in distant countries. It's happening right here in the United States as well. Mass incarceration, one of those issues. I mean, we have huge issues that our U.S. population faces. You know, LGBTQ rights. When we look at what are the battles in courts these days, gerrymandering to basically deprive people of rights, there are a whole lot of human rights issues that we have to address right here in the United States. I think it's so important that we do continue to look in other countries as well. We're a small global community, but that we not spare ourselves from that same kind of scrutiny. We need to ask ourselves the same hard questions. Are we basically cultivating human rights at home? How can we better do so?
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. Can you put a face on your work and tell us a story?
Absolutely. We've got lots of stories and lots of faces. I will start with the story of a woman that I met when I first started my practice at the Legal Defense Fund. As I mentioned, one of our primary issues is working to challenge barriers faced by individuals returning home from a period of incarceration. In must have been 2018, I met a woman in Atlanta, Georgia. Her name was Sharon Turner. It was a couple days after her 58th birthday, I believe. And we had met because she, after spending 12 years living in a home with 12 other people, after serving her country for nearly 3 decades and serving her community, having a stable job, she was unable to find housing close to her place of employment. She had actually been denied, I think, a day or 2 before her birthday in a public housing unit, a senior housing unit specifically, where some of her friends lived, where she'd often meet with them and socialize. She was immediately denied her application to this housing unit because of a conviction from 1993. Again, this woman is a 58-year-old woman who had served 3 decades serving our country in the armed services. She had a stable job. She had actually saved up, I think, 6 months to pay the rent in advance for 6 months. So she thought that would enhance her application package. She was really caught off guard and dismayed because she was facing some dire circumstances. Again, living with 12 people, she had a 3-hour commute to work and had no stable housing for her own, and she never had. And that was really a snapshot for me. She didn't have a place like Joseph House where she could go, and they looked past a mistake that was made, I think, 26 years ago. She didn't have a community that could support her in securing housing. She was just automatically denied. No review of individualized circumstances, no commitment to our veterans, no sort of contemplation that this woman deserved the basic right to housing. And Ms. Turner's story is unfortunately not unique. We see it time and time again, whether it's housing or an opportunity to vote or access to educational opportunities or benefits, even educational, some college programs. We see barriers, we see denials automatically based on a mistake. This is despite a release from incarceration where we say we support our communities, we say folks have been rehabilitated, rather we're casting them aside. And so A face to our work in the civil rights and racial justice space are the faces that we see around us. It's veterans, it's people of color, it's brothers and sisters, it's a 58-year-old woman, right? Our face is all of us, if you guys look around, and impacted by these issues that plague our society. And when I think about civil rights and human rights, I always try to break it down in how I approach our work, and it's just the basic notion that everyone deserves human dignity and respect. A 58-year-old woman that served this country for 3 decades deserves to find housing in Atlanta. That seems so basic to me. And so sometimes in approaching this sort of work or approaching these issues, you know, we hear a lot of talking points or opposing views in politics and those sorts of things, but really it just comes down to the basic notion that I think we can all agree on, is that folks deserve basic human dignity and respect.
Terry, I'll ask you the same thing. Can you put a face on your work and tell us a story?
I'm sorry, do I?
Can you put a face on your work and tell us a story?
Oh. Well, you know, I mean, every person that walks through the doors in our Human Rights Center brings a story to us. And I think that's what human rights is all about. It's bringing stories that have been neglected, stories that have been marginalized at times, and basically bringing them out. It's what we do with every asylum seeker. We have to actually help them tell their story in front of an immigration judge that could deport them if they can't tell their story and explain why are they afraid of persecution. So that it's bringing those kinds of stories to life. You'll get to hear one of those stories again. Andre, great friend of ours, he's going to share some of his story, but the way that his story has actually impacted our Human Rights Center. He's a human rights fellow with us, and what he has brought, what his story means to our center, to FSU, and to our larger community, so important that those stories be brought to us. We celebrate those stories, and we allow those stories to impact us.
Okay, so at this time, I want to introduce 2 of our residents. You've met Pri already. Pri is our community educator. He is a small business owner and has begun his own pressure washing business. You heard him talk about he was incarcerated for 22 years, 11 of those in solitary confinement, which is one of those things that we would consider a human rights violation in itself. But Pri, when we first met, we had in common that we both read science fiction and fantasy novels. He's an avid reader. What I love about Pri is he doesn't have time to read anymore because he has too much life to live. He's got too much going on. And so Pri will come up in just a moment with Andre. Andre and I go way back. A decade ago, I was sending Andre books. And they were books that Father Dustin picked out. And if any of you know Father Dustin, you know that these are heady books. And as he was sending these books to Andre, I kept thinking, you know, these might be a little too hard. As it turns out, they weren't too hard. They weren't too hard because Andre just has this voracious appetite for learning and for philosophy and for ethics. And he's come to us now, and he is the fellow at Center for Human Rights. So Pri and Andre, if you would both come up here and join us. We'll give you a minute to get your mics fixed. You just clip it onto your tie and it'll pick you up.
Oh, I'm already missing. Okay.
All right, we haven't heard from Andre yet, so I'm going to start with you.
Okay.
So I want you to think back to your days facing reentry, and what you've now experienced. What were the things that frightened you the most, and what ways do you think community has helped you transition Tell us a little bit about, I know, loaded questions.
Yeah, we can start like now.
Yeah.
I was definitely would be like just overwhelmed thinking about this situation I'm in right now.
Mike, is his mic not working? Tap it and see if it makes any noise.
Yeah, I might put it out.
How's this?
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Mic check, 1, 2.
Yeah. So if I can remember that question, what I can remember, this would probably freak me out just thinking about this. 13 months ago. Today, 13 months ago, I was in a cell, and had been there 16 years and 48 days. And so these days would be a part of my dream, but it would come from memorizing paragraphs of books and saying them in the mirror, or what we call a mirror. It's just a reflection. There's no mirrors in there. And so this would be one of the fears, just being around people and being seen. And especially since everyone you meet after you're convicted, because the strategy of labeling, they know the worst part of you, and that qualifies how to hear you, how to see you, how to relate, even what opportunity to hand you or to offer. And so that's one of the things that I think was, just something that you really couldn't, have a category for in there. And a couple more things that you don't think that anybody cares. You don't think anybody cares. And speaking of that, there's one thing, I was sitting over there thinking while I was listening to you guys, and I was thinking, there's so many people that I remember leading up to this moment and being here tonight in a tie, ironically blue. Man, I wonder what they would want me to say to you guys. And Terry, man, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking like, because of what I'm doing primarily is to restore the dignity of the formerly incarcerated and the incarcerated individual. What would they want me to say, Commissioner? And it's probably they wake up just like me. They wake up every day, Roger, and they think there's this debt that I can't nail down, and I feel like I have to pay it every single day. And I feel like they would say it in some form or fashion like, I get it, I'm doing the best I can, help me, come and show me. I don't know how to do this. I don't have the strength of character. I don't have the opportunity. I don't have the relationships. Help me. I get it. That's the voice of 100,000 strong right here. And that needs to be heard tonight. So, that's for those guys. And is that okay? Can we?
It's absolutely perfect. Pri, I'm just going to go ahead and hand it to you.
Yeah, he tried to set the bar kind of high. Go ahead and ask me the question.
Ask you the question?
Ask me the question.
So it's the same question I asked Andre, which is, think back to your days when you were facing reentry. I mean, you've been at Joseph House this week, 2 years. Before that, what was it like when you were thinking about what it was going to be like when you got out? And now, what do you think are those things that made you most successful?
All right, so I went to prison real young. So I didn't, hello, y'all hear me? Everybody hear me? I can talk loud, I just want to make sure everybody hear me. So when I was in prison, I went so young, reason why I wound up doing 11 years CM, which is closed management, confinement, is because I was all I know is prison at that time. Like that's all I knew, so I used to get in trouble. All I did was gamble. I was the wine man. Like I did everything bad in prison because I was too young to really go to prison. And there isn't such a thing. Like, so all the time that I was in prison, I was going through everything. I used to think about getting out because I had a date. My date was just a far date. We call them Buck Rogers in prison. And it was just so far, but I used to dream, Sonia. I used to dream. And every day, just like last year at the Gala we had last year with him, he said the same thing. He used to dream, like I used to fantasize about just living a regular, perfect life. And I know it ain't no perfect life, I know that now I know that. But I just wanted a regular life. I just wanted to go home, come home to my family. I wanted to own my own house and just be regular. I didn't want to commit any more crimes because I had did so long. So, the first part of your question, when I got out, well, and came to the Joseph House, I had already, that's another thing good about the Joseph House too. They meet you before you even get out. I had numerous abilities from the superstar, Rachel. So what happened was, I was already learning that I'm gonna be around good people. So it was 6 months in the process of me getting out, coming to the Joseph House, and I prayed to God. I said, all I needed you to do is one thing. And of course I needed him to do more than that, but I'm just telling him. I just needed him just to not let me get tripped up in anything, like being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Because I knew I wasn't gonna do nothing illegal. I did 22 years. I done did more time. I've been living longer in prison than I did on the street my whole life. So like I wasn't going for that anymore. And coming to the Joseph House, I came into the perfect situation. And like I'll be damned if I try God like that. He gonna give me a second chance and I'm not gonna take it. So when I first got there, I was a little nervous because I've never lived with people as an adult outside of prison. And people outside of prison, they different. You know, we are different. We are different. You got people that have been in there for 45 years. You best believe they don't act like you, Commissioner. So when I get there, my brother Chad, he's like, man, you look like, I'm just getting out the car, we followed us and Rachel, and he's like, you look like Luke Cage. And I'm like, he never knew that till I told him later, but it relaxed me, because I was like, well, man, I can kind of vibe with him a little bit. And when I came in, and he had all the candles, he himself, Chad, had cleaned the house and had candles everywhere, and it made me accept it. That very thing made me do that to all the brothers after me. You see, like it's contagious, and it's some love there. And I beeline straight to this beautiful, it's a window, but it's double, and it shows the backyard. And for those who haven't been to the Joseph House, it's beautiful. It's just beautiful, man. And you talk about a man who I haven't even been able to touch a real tree in 22 years. So I appreciate the garden, and so being around the people that this guy here, Father Dustin, the most important man in my life that God put in my life back in 2017, he put people around me where I couldn't, it's almost impossible for me to mess up. And it's, me and Rachel, I'll say about, a month? We went a month every day or every other day, going here. I was 18. I didn't have nothing. I didn't have a social security card. I didn't have a driver license. I didn't even have a restrict. I didn't even have an ID. I had never had nothing. When we was looking up stuff in my name, they didn't even have me down because I had got locked up in 1999. I got too much changed in between there. If I didn't have Joseph House, I'm almost 100% certain I would be locked up right now. And the reason why I say that is because everybody who's gotten out that I know of after me is locked back up, including my son. My son got out actually 2 months before me, and he's incarcerated right now. It's just so easy to get messed up, especially at these places where they kind of, what we call them the halfway houses, because that ain't us. The halfway houses, they kind of like, okay, board you and kick you. We don't even have a date. Like, I left the Joseph house after 8 months. But we don't, it's not a thing to pressurize you. It's not a thing where people are coming in and oh, you got 6 months. You able to get things together and you're around people that's going to help you help yourself. And I'm just a type of person. I have a lot of drive, and I'm not tooting my own horn or nothing. But if you put me around people like Father Dustin and Rachel and Sonia, people that's going to be like, oh, that's all you need to know is just explain it to me. Teach me how to fish. Don't fish for me. That's what helped me transition. So when I went and I told Father Dustin, I'll never forget that day ever in my life. When I told him, I said, man, I'm ready to leave out of the Joseph house. I was ready to leave. I wanted to branch out, and it was a bittersweet moment, but at the same time, I wanted to branch out, and from there, I always had 2 jobs. Ever since I've been out. When I first got out, I couldn't get one, but when I got one, I kept 2. Now I have, I just know how the world is. It's not 1999. So those things, Sonia, helped me so much. Just being around those people, and those people was the Joseph house, the community. We have a big community. We get more and more people, and I know some of these people about to get affected with the Joseph house love. They are, because it's just so much. I can be having the worst day or the worst week. If I go to that Joseph house, I'm smiling because I get to see my brothers that's doing more than me. They are just exploding. So many guys are coming through there. Our percentage rate is high. You know what I'm saying? You get to see this. You get to see Arthur and the brothers and Joe and all of them accomplishing these goals. And these help because that's what I want. And I recently, and I don't know if I'm supposed to be saying this, but I'm so happy because I always wanted it since I've been out. I recently just got approved for this man right here pushing the buttons for me to go into the prisons and speak. So now I'll be going to talk to my brothers and there. There ain't nothing about the Joseph house that isn't the best thing in the world for me. You know what I'm saying? It's the second half. It's that part. If you can imagine yourself having just start over. If you had a bad life or whatever, and you got that one chance to start over and it went well, that is Joseph house for me. That's what it done. It just made me a completely different person, but it gave me an opportunity because I wouldn't be, if I would have went to where I'm from, all those trips me and Rachel took, I didn't have a car, I didn't have nobody to take, my mom didn't have a car, I would have had to stay with my brother and my mom. My brother wasn't even working it, like it was just too much. But God seen that and opened that opportunity for me to go to the Joseph house. And that's my life, man.
I love you're contagious.
Yeah,
I mean, you're
that
just
contagious.
so
Yeah,
Andre and Terry, this isn't a question. This is more, I want to set you guys loose for just a minute and talk about what it's like to work together, what it means to the Human Rights Institute for Andre to be there. Andre, what is it like for you to be there? And I'll let you guys facilitate that for just a moment.
Yeah, starting with me.
Starting with
definitely.
you. Let's do it.
It's really interesting to hear Terry speak because he is the same with the same intensity all the time. Like from class to walking from one place to the next, from lunch, Saturday lunch to Zooms. Terry is like literally all in. He really believes in what he's doing. He's very competent. He's very connected. He's resourceful. He's able to do what he needs to do. And if he doesn't, he knows who he can contact to do it. And He's often telling stories, and when it gets really serious, he cracks a joke. And then it goes right back to, the seriousness and significance of these stories and these lectures. And everybody just really, really enjoy what you do. And at every point you get to a place to where you say, and when I met this guy, or you get to a place where you're like, and so I called her up one day and we're talking about someone in a totally different country, and just the connections that you have and the proximity. The proximity to these issues is so important and serious. I'm looking at Dylan right now, a guy from our human rights state crime class that Terry, teaches, and Dylan knows that I'm speaking for both of us. Like, it is literally intoxicating to be in front of you and drenched with this subject and the way you do it, and it's life-changing. People come in that class and it completely changed their trajectory. And so that's really something that I really enjoy seeing. For someone to go and speak to Terry about someone, because after every day, every class, there's 15, 20 people waiting on him, and he's just sitting there and he's just going from one person to the next, one person to the next. And I know every single person, I know this, you're expanding their vision. You're giving them a larger worldview. You're adding to it, and so, right? Mm-hmm. And so I just think that's one of the main things that I take away. Terry, he adds value to every single relationship, every person's life he touches. He wants to add more to them than when he met them. And so I just think that's so critical, and, yeah.
Well, thanks, Hunter. I'd like you to write all that. I'd like you to write that down for my wife, all right, so that she can once again understand how important that is. Well, Andre, let me ask you a question too, because I love the life and the story that you bring to our Human Rights Center, to FSU. I mean, Nelson Mandela famously said one time, the most potent weapon you could give anyone to change the world is an education. What do you think about that?
Primary form of reintegration. Education is the primary form of reintegration. When you think of education, you're thinking literally the doorway to democracy. It literally, and so Obama says, democracy is impossible with uninformed citizenry. I think that when it comes down to nuts and bolts, education opens the door to better employment. It opens the door to, just basic decision making in regards to critical thinking from one decision to the next when you go into coping situations, from criminogenic risk factors when it comes to people from being incarcerated, And so I think that it has really changed my life. And plus, most people don't have the drive in prison to even have those dreams and goals. They don't think of education as a goal to attain. I remember the story. Can I tell them this?
Depends.
Yes. Okay. Here we go.
Here we go, man.
I was kidding. I didn't want to. I almost didn't meet Father Dustin, Patricia. I was at a faith and character-based facility, and I was having to go to these classes, and I was going hungry, leaving starving. And pretty much over it. Most people wanted to be there, better environment, things were a little better, it wasn't as violent as most camps. Whatever it takes, I'm going to stay there. No heart change. And so I tried to get out of the seminar that Father Dustin was giving. I had no idea who he was, never seen his face. All I know is that, hey, chaplain, I've taken this class before. Here's the paperwork. I asked him if I can clip out of a class. And he goes, no, it's not possible, literally. And so, I ended up going to his classes, sitting in the back, and he was serious. you know, and he spoke my language. And I was starving for it. And, you know, whenever you're learning things and there's a connection and, you know, there's questions, Margie, that you ask, you know, and how do you know where a person is other than their questions? And obviously, he appreciated where I was and understood the need. After that was over with, I'm scrubbing the showers. That wasn't my job, but I was in a dorm. I was in a dorm of 86 men, and just looking for a need, right, to meet. I would go and scrub the showers and say to myself, Terry, God, please don't let me waste my life. I would scrub the shower floors. He knows this. I would scrub the shower floors so often that the officers thought it was my job. When it wasn't done, they would call me for it. It wasn't my job. But I wanted to put I wanted to put myself as closest to a need as possible. And I understood humility and how important it is. And whatever way I had to get it, I wanted it. Commissioner. And so they call me back up. I'm cleaning the shower. Hey, chaplain wants you. That's bad news in prison because it means someone's probably died. Or you know, like, it's just bad to be called to the chaplain. It's not trouble because it would be another place.
Yeah.
The chaplain,
bad.
brace it.
Yeah, you want
Brace it. And so you take your time. You take your time.
take
You know,
your time.
like, great. And I walk in and he's sitting there, you know, and he tells me basically, hey, if it's okay with you, I have to prove. I just want to accompany you for the rest of your sentence. And bi-weekly for over 10 years, not bi-weekly, bi-monthly, for over 10 years, Father Dustin and I sat in one room, sometimes this close, talking to 2 to 3 hours.
10 years.
Straight.
That's
He intellectually raised me. He taught me so many things just by listening. He taught me so many things, Rachel, by showing up.
I
You
love
hear
that.
me? So, anyways.
I want to go back to Pri for just a second. You made an offhanded remark that most people in this room don't understand. Talk to us about a Buck Rogers steak.
Oh, okay. Listen, to be honest with you, Father Dustin the one gave me the back end of it. Like, because when I was in prison, I was so young, all the older guys used to be like, how much time you got? 60 years. Oh, you got a Buck Rogers. So I didn't find out literally till I got out that it was the show, that sci-fi show that was Buck Rogers, and it means in time. So if somebody says you have a Buck Rogers date in prison, it's usually a long time. So like now it's 2023, so somebody with a 2065 date, that's a Buck Rogers. Like that's like you, that is way down. So, and thank you. I'm sorry. I just thought y'all knew.
I'm going to have to start winding down, but I've got a couple of things before I want to allow for ed comments for the people up here. Terry, tell us what Andre means to the Center for Human Rights. Andre got to give his perspective, but tell us what he does for you.
What I love about Andre, not just bringing his story and, I mean, the amazing life experience that you've had to our FSU community, but Andre, what I love is that you're chasing your dream, this dream of an education, and that goes way beyond you. You're going to open the door, as you've said, for all those guys behind the walls still. Education is out there, it's a possibility, and I love the way that you're modeling that for them. You're showing them how it can be done, how you can wake up passionate about that, and how you can change the world. Thank you.
I'm going to start with Patricia and then go to Terry and then Pri and end with Andre. Okay? So, Patricia, do you have any closing comments for us? Anything about how Joseph House fits into your world? You've been talking about that. But even anything that you can offer everybody here.
Absolutely, and inspired by Pri and Andre, especially.
Anything you say,
But I want to challenge everyone in this room based on the beautiful remarks we heard today. to rethink how we treat each other and not treat each other based on our mistakes or the worst day of our life or how we may have been incarcerated, but to treat each other based on what Andre mentioned, based on our needs, based on what someone needs, based on their potential, based on their aspirations, as Pri mentioned, maybe based on their dreams. That takes a lot of courage to do and a lot of retraining our brains of, how we do that. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that we're in a religious space. We heard from the bishop. We've heard a lot about Father Dustin, but to me, being in this space, being amongst potentially religious folks is to say that that's an obligation we must do to treat people that way. And although it takes a lot of courage, although it takes a lot of rethinking and configuring of, how we've been taught about who is bad or who deserves care or who is valuable, it could be transformative. Earlier I mentioned that about 10 million people every year are impacted by incarceration. If we were to treat people impacted by incarceration based on not their worst day, but based on their needs, based on their potential, based on their dreams, we would have 10 million Andres and Pris walking around. That would be transformative. And so as we leave here today, I really encourage you to change your train of thought, to change how you approach and treat people, to support organizations like Joseph House that have taken the steps, that have been so courageous in treating people based on their needs and their potentials and their dreams, and support those sorts of missions so that we can see Joseph Houses in every city, every state, and really transform our society. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Terry, I turn to you.
I'm sorry, what was the question again?
You have an opportunity to say one last thing.
Okay, it's Eleanor Roosevelt. It's Eleanor Roosevelt, where do human rights begin? Small places close to home. And again, all of us in this room have those small places where we can be difference makers. And again, getting to be difference makers in a place like Joseph House, right here in Tallahassee, what a great opportunity. And countless other ways that we can build up human rights just close to home, building people up to basically help them chase their dreams. So yeah, the great thought, the great thing that Joseph House does that I think is the inspiration for all of us.
Thank you for that. Pri?
I just want to say, and I'm just closing some last words. I just want to say I appreciate everyone coming out. This means a lot to me. Like, I want to be known as, I'm going to always, to the day I die, be a part of the Joseph House because it means so much to me, what it done to me, and I'm always help as a community educator, but as the brother, as a person who's a resident there, as an alumni, like, I'm going to always help whatever it comes to the Joseph House. And I want to thank the brothers that are not here, you know what I'm saying? All the brothers that came through there and left, and the brothers that's not there, we have brothers coming, the brothers that's incarcerated, they watch me, trust me, they tell me, I talk to a lot of brothers, they look at me and they are rooting for me like crazy. I know that sounds crazy, but when I talk to them, they're like, man, we seen you on Facebook. I'm like, how you see me on Facebook? You know me on Facebook, but like, they like, man, we see you doing these speakers and stuff, man. And as my brother Andre said, me and him always say this, and we know this, because I was one of them ones, I didn't know it was this many people that actually cared. Like, you are here to hear us talk about these type of situations, so you care, so you already through that threshold. And I just want to say I appreciate you guys coming.
Amen.
All right, Andre, you get the last word.
Great.
At least at this moment.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just interested in some self-reflection, just super quick. What have you learned about yourselves tonight? You know, at some point, you know, issues like this, you know, they become personal. you know, and for each of you here, like, what have you learned about yourself? You know, be responsible with that. You know, there's a guy, and I'm really proud to do this, that was one of my mentors a long time ago. His name was Richard Dumas. And Terry, he used to literally expect the world of me. Patricia, this guy used to tell me, bro, you gotta get this. But this is the part I'll never forget. He said, because I won't always be here. Who do you need to tell that to? Think about this. We have to get this because we won't always be here. The devil's too busy. The job is too big, and men's lives are at stake. Women's lives are at stake. So that's it.
I will piggyback on Andre's line. He said it well. The job is too big. It's just too big. We started there, we'll end there. It is too big. It's all too big, but there is a starting point. And what we'd like to do is show you how to start with us tonight. So I will turn it over. Is it to Father Dustin that I'm turning it over? Pre. Thank you.
I'm gonna go over there. Bring the king out. Now he's gonna probably be a little mad, but I'm about to get him a good, introduction. Now this is the man of the hour. We ain't gonna say Dean Martin. What'd you say? Oh.
I said he needs a great introduction.
Oh yes, he deserves it. Now, before I introduce Father Dustin and call him up here, I just want to. This is him. This is him. Like when I met Father Dustin in 2017, he was the one that. He was talking about the Joseph House. It wasn't even built. It wasn't even thought of. That's all he talked about. And the funny thing is, just what I'm sharing this with you, I used to tell him all the time, like, I'll help you think of it, but I ain't going to no Joseph House. I wouldn't even care about it. I thought of it as a halfway house then, and I wasn't going to go. And 6 months, God just had us run into each other. Same prison, but different times. And I had left, and he had came back, and we ran into each other. And man, I'm just saying, I'm glad I met you, man. This is the greatest man I've ever met in my life. Father Dustin. Step here with the man of the hour.
This is, so if anything you all learned tonight, it's that the most important thing at Joseph House is Fruity Pebbles, eating Fruity Pebbles together. And it really is. I mean, I'm not actually joking about that.
It is Fruity Pebbles.
I'm not. It's not about Fruity Pebbles, but it's about spending those seemingly insignificant moments together. Slowing down a little bit, just to hear maybe another layer of the story. And then it's not hard to start seeing redemption and cosmic stuff happen right in the living room around Fruity Pebbles. And that to me is the miracle of Joseph House that, trust me, I learned early into the stages in the first couple of weeks that, I was not going to be running the show. That really all that was there for me was to live with my brothers, to be with them, to spend time with them. And now you all can see maybe just a little bit more of why I tell people, close friends of mine, that I have absolutely won the lottery with the life that I have. Spending time with men like Pri and Andre, Arthur, Jeff, who couldn't be here tonight. And this man, if anyone thinks of what Joseph House is, It's this man, Joe Sullivan, our very first resident, who really is the one who made it a home. He made it a home, and he makes it a home because he welcomes so many people. And there is no stranger that he has met, this man, Joe Sullivan. 6 years today, 6 years today free. No doubt because of the dedication and the passion of a man like Brian Stevenson and so many of our dear sisters and brothers at EJI that put this man's plight, the injustices against this man, put it front and center, dedicated, took it all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court 6 years ago. So this man is, to me, makes family, makes home Joseph House. Joe, and then Chad, and so many of our brothers here. So I had a 3-minute little speech here, but I thought a lot about thought about, a little bit of Pope Francis, a little bit of theology and scripture, but that all went to the wayside when today I received 2 letters, and this is not an uncommon occurrence, just 2 letters. I read them opened them up at about 3 o'clock this afternoon, and I thought this to me is why maybe you all, for many of you that for the first time being here, knowing a little bit more about Joseph House, understand why we exist. This came from a man from Santa Rosa, where Pri will be going here shortly with Steve and I.
I'm going to talk, not going. I'm going back to talk.
And the fact that this man is going back, talk about the power for the men to be able to see Pri, who's been in their cell, like the size of a mop closet, and can witness to where he is now with Steve and I and others, and Quentin, also, Quentin, Joe's first roommate, housemate at Joseph House. And again, there's just so many stories. I'll stop because I could just keep going about Chad and Quentin and Arthur and other brothers here tonight. But I just want to read just 2 excerpts from 2 letters that I received today. This is from a young gentleman from Live Oak. I know my past has created a lot of things, made my life after prison for me more difficult regarding my living. And of course, with a world with so much discrimination, a job is going to be hard at first, but I know patience is a virtue. I'm not sure if you remember, Father Dustin, but I love to cook, and I want my own very restaurant, Delicious Bites. Chef Rebecca, are you still here? Okay, this is a future
Free fire.
Another letter. In Florida, Father Dustin, my mom passed away when I was 21 years old, and I've been locked up in prison ever since. He's about in his mid-30s. And then my family drifted apart. My dad and brother won't talk to me, help me, write me. They won't pick up the phone. Due to making the wrong choices, because I feel like my back was against the wall and I was desperate, my choices now I know are limited. I hate being in prison, around all the negative stuff and violence, but I'm also scared to leave because I don't know what I'm going to do, and I'm afraid to fail. I don't want to spend my life in prison. I'm hoping I can maybe get help through the Joseph House. These are just 2 letters today, and Ellen and Rachel and others can testify to the fact that we get these every week. That's the extent of the need. And Jessica knows this, and her team, the Public Defender's Office, that as we know at Joseph House, one of our brothers, being homeless can send you back to prison. Just being homeless. That's a crime, still, in some areas. And so for that reason, we have made the kind of bold decision to expand and to buy the house next door. And because, frankly, I'm sick of turning down these letters time and time and time and time again. And I know there's so many people out here that are interested in redemption stories and new life, new possibilities, that we can make this work. Now, this house, as some of you know, needs a lot of work. And we're going to probably do about 3 to 4 months of a lot of loving, tender care. Chad, Jim, Sam, others, in making this house, our house next door that needs a lot of work, into that beautiful space that Patricia spoke of. Because I always think about Joseph House as a place that I would want to live. I would want my mother to live. I would want my closest friends to live. And that's our philosophy. And for that reason, we're dedicating now, over the next couple of months, a lot of work, rehabbing kitchens and bathrooms, new roof, and all of this. And for that reason, we come to the most important moment of tonight, because we know that money talks. Actually, money creates possibilities for people that never would have had a possibility when they have their own room and they have spaces where they can actually enter into new friendships and relationships. So on your table in front of you is this card, and it has a pen. It says, not a halfway house, a home, Joseph House. And we're just going to take a moment here, because we're interested in making this house next door a home. So we've got two kind of approaches here. We've got, and you've got a lot of options. Pri and I are going to fill out this card as well. On behalf of the two of us, we're going to fill out this card. And I don't know, Pri, I think we're going to start off with the 50,000. And we're just going to go ahead and we'll deliver the check to Bishop Bill, Pensacola. But here we have different amounts. So just kind of take a moment. And then we also, but I want to say this too, because this goes as long as of a way, it's the reoccurring donations. It's the monthly $25, $50, $100, $250 donations that takes care of our utilities, that will take care of the utilities of the house next door. We're hoping, I think, to get that up to about $2,500 a month in reoccurring donations so that we can have 2 homes. Now totaling about 10 brothers living in community together. So you've got these amounts, you've got options here, giving online. And just take a moment here as you fill out the rest of the card here. And we'll give you a couple of seconds as Pri does some improv. You got a song in you, Pri?
No, I ain't got no
You got a joke? You got a story? You got a story. I know you got a story.
You know, these people gonna probably kick us out their building and but I do want to say one more thing, right? As I told you, I'm really glad that it's more than last year. I'm glad that a lot of people came out, and I see a lot of new faces, especially my book club. I know y'all heard me and Andre earlier talking about the people, how when we inside, we don't really notice that type of people out here. That's why I really, like, everybody I met today, if I didn't, I said it to you. Like, I really appreciate you coming here, because we need you. Like, the Joseph House, the community ain't growing because we ain't out here spreading the word. It's growing because we having things like the Gala. We're growing because we got people like Roger that's flat-footed. They need to have him for the presidential election. He's a grassroots. He don't even play. He be everywhere.
Like, we need to educate what's going on inside. Like, I can talk to you for 15 hours straight right now about confinement, and I wouldn't even break the ice. So, like, when people don't know about those stories, they don't know. You know?
Well, and they don't know, and I'll tell you, Pri, that when I've gone back and Steve's been in these dorms, Steve was with me, in fact. Steve Hammond and Marilyn Hammond, two veterans in prison ministry, 40 plus years of going into prisons and building communities on the inside.
And super Joseph House community.
But I just want to say that when I go in to these dorms and I'm going into these solitary confinement cells, and I've got a magazine article with Pri from the diocese, Compass magazine, and I tell them about Andre, 13 months, let's remember this, 13 months, and he's a human rights fellow studying law and human rights at Florida State University. I just want to say that's unheard of. And when these men hear this, I'm telling you, literally, I've had men in their cell, I'm telling them about Andre, and they are jumping up and down. They are so excited about the possibility. Because when Andre does it, when Pri does it, when Arthur, our wonderful sous chef, who cooks for Tallahassee's homeless, cooks with Chef Rebecca at Refire for Tallahassee's homeless. When people hear these stories, I mean, their world expands. And it's possible for them too. That's when I've got guys now enlisting in Refire already at Santa Rosa Correctional. So these stories matter. And to me, this is why I still think the greatest story. Anyways, but I'm biased, I know. I do want to draw this to an end. You've had a time to look it over, to pray about it. No, you don't really need to pray about it. You just gotta write it, and then anyways, I've got about 7 other things I could say, but I'll stop right there. But I do want to make special mention of a few people that have already been mentioned, some of them. And I want to start off by just mentioning great thanks to my colleague, my what are people that are in the trenches together? I guess, well, you're in the trenches with me. Comrade in arms, Rachel Sullivan Bunting. I'm not trying to embarrass you, but so
she just does so much. That's
29,
now.
28 years old, and this woman is already, I wasn't thinking about any of this at the age of 28, and she's doing this work with our community, and is a sister to all of our brothers that come through Joseph House. That's extraordinary. So thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Mother Murphy. Ellen Murphy, where are you?
I'm over here.
Ellen brings not only so much order into my chaos, I know, but really I say why I just said Mother Ellen, right? Mother Murphy, is because that's Joe's term from Ellen. That's what happens at Joseph House. You just become family. Sorry, you don't have a choice in the matter. You don't. You become family. So Ellen Murphy, thank you for your dedication, service, the administrative work, the hours upon hours of work that you put in at Joseph House. Thank you, Ellen. And I've got one other person here tonight to mention. There's a lot of other names I can mention, but one other name, and that is Hannah Katanik. Hannah, who lives in West Palm, has put all of this together tonight so that these stories could happen, so that you all can meet each other. And to me, that is the greatest work of Joseph House, which is hospitality. So thank you, Hannah, for the work that you do. And now, I was about to give you all the blessing and then the go in peace for a moment, but I am going to pray though. So if let us, with everything tonight, I think it's good to pray because we want more of this, as Bishop said and Sonia said. And by the way, thank you, Sonia. Thank you, Sonia, for your friendship and for all of the work that you've done at Joseph House, for listening to me for years, but also, isn't she a natural kind of interviewer? I mean, that was the ease. So thank you.
If you wouldn't have brought her up, I was going to walk off the stage. I was going to walk on the stage.
So thank you, Sonia. Let us pray. God, make my heart open to the unheard, to the homeless, to the detained, to the incarcerated. God, make my heart open to goodness, to love, to the possibilities that you have given me. God, make my heart open to the beauty that you bring to each of us every day. We pray all of this through Christ our Lord. Amen. 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 And thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for taking some time to hear our stories tonight. Thank you.
And right before we go, we have shirts over here. If you want to check out some of the shirts we have. We have some Joseph House shirts over there. You can check some of them out. We have the white ones, the green ones I like the best. Forest green.
And some of us will be around, so if you have any questions, Patricia, Terry will be hanging out a little bit, Bree, myself. Good night.